to know how you see the world. Do you seek out urban beauty? Or do you create your own landscapes? Maybe it's outdoor adventure that makes your world turn. Let us bring your passion into focus and give you the best view yet. At Botwin Eye Group and Oculus Optical, we defy the norms by combining advanced medical eye care with Santa Fe's finest selection of luxury and artful eyeglasses. Botwin Eye Group and Oculus Optical, 2 locations in Santa Fe.
Santa Fe Gloom podcast. We are back. We've got Kaue Martins from Brusa FC. Kaue, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, David.
So Kaue, man, you were on our very first podcast back in back in February of last year.
Mm-hmm.
So this has kind of all come full circle. You guys had obviously a season last year, and now we're doing a preview of the National Futsal Premier League Championship game, which will be played Saturday. You guys are taking on the Futsal Factory out of Michigan. They're 6-0. You guys are all 7-1. Is that right?
Correct.
So give us just like a preview of what's going on this week and up until Saturday of the game time of the championship game.
Mm-hmm. It's good to be back. To talk to you again. Obviously, we talk on and off, constantly, but it looks like the podcast grew. So I'm super excited to see the fan scene in New Mexico growing and growing. The atmosphere then when we played you guys was amazing. So great job on doing that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
For the week is just another, week for us. And since the preparation, we're training every day like we usually do. Outside of the court, the administration stuff, obviously we have a lot of stuff we need to do. We're renting the college place there, which is, great, facility is great, got all the amenities they could possibly need. We're going to have a couple different cameras going on at the same time for the final, getting, I don't know, probably 20 to 30 people, an administrative side to be able to help not only the fans to come in, but to get all the requisites that the league wants for the final. So administration wise, we're doing stuff every day. I got a lot of stuff to do on my list still, and so does our admin team here. Mm-hmm. For the boys, we're focused. Everyone's hungry. We've been training for this since last season, so we're excited.
And why are you guys so good this season?
Man, it's just work, like we talked about last season. Nothing really changed. We know how to do things. It just, it's not always so easy. It takes a time. It's a process, we know how to do it. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. We know we made a couple more additions to the team, but the team is within a whole is pretty similar, to what it was before. We got, probably 3-4 different additions, but we've been training a lot since the last time we talked. Mm-hmm. Every day, sometimes twice a day. It's following the process, improving little things, so we can, impose or try to play our way. And that's there's no like real secret, besides just analyzing, training, and that's about it.
Right. And this year, what I noticed was you guys had more of like a player coach system. So can you tell our audience about kind of how that played out? Because I know, you had your player go in and out and then coach, score a goal, and then come back out. So what made you think that system could work?
Well, it's more out of necessity. We're working, as bringing, people from abroad. There's a whole process to it. And, the head coach, John, is still, the coach. We talk to him on a daily basis, getting everything organized. Mm-hmm. So he had over there to renew the visa. Okay. So he's currently in that process. And, that kind of happened, last minute without us wanting to do. We have obviously our lawyers going through all this, paperwork and immigration stuff. And so we're still talking to him. He watched our practices, obviously analyzed the games, and we pretty much implement, what we've been doing already. So it's nothing foreign. That's the good part. He was here for about a year, and we just keep it moving the way it was, and Christian and I have been, helping the boys and implement, everything that we've been doing. So it's just, we just keep moving and doing the same things we were doing before. So that's why it's it kind of worked like that. But the head coach still Johnny. Christian's now the assistant coach. Christian and I the assistant coaches, and that's what we've been doing. It's a little weird on our the way we wanted to do things, but it's kind of happened that way.
And where is he?
He's in Brazil right now.
Okay.
He's the
And how does
coach
he make
of. He's a
the
big
game?
name coach in Brazil, and while he's waiting for the for the visa process there, he's working with Vasco da Gama, one of the bigger powerhouses there in Brazil.
Okay.
So,
And is he watching the games live and giving direction somehow, or do you kind of just
no,
play
not
that by
live. No,
ear?
yeah, that's a good question. Usually
Okay.
not live. You watch maybe one or two, but not live. It's the time difference is about 5 hours or so from here
Hmm.
to Brazil. And the connection is not always the greatest. So he's also
Right.
working there in Brazil currently.
Right.
Favorite place to play outside of Phoenix?
There's no favorite place, to be honest. Every game is a hard game, like we said last season. But the atmosphere within the whole is super good there when you guys host it. Obviously, we prefer playing at home in front of our fans. If you had to pick a favorite place, but atmosphere wise, I think you guys have one of the best atmospheres that we had. Especially this season with the venues that you guys had and so many people. You added a bunch of little things to make it into a performance. Like entertainment rather than just being just solely about the game.
Right. And that's one thing I also did notice when we went to Phoenix was you guys had a great crowd. Why is that from last year to this year?
I think the team, is performing. They're going to implement more of the stuff that we teach. We have the same methodology, with the youth than we do with the pros. So we preach, we do, and when the kids can visually see that, have their favorite coaches, favorite players there. I think that helps a little bit. We've been getting anywhere from 200 to 300 people as well. So it's been a good environment. The kids are all about it, especially when you score a goal, they all want to celebrate together. We've been talking about it during our academy training throughout the week.
Yeah.
And then we're not in Brazil or Spain, so we have, like I said before, we have to nurture that, and then we've been trying to do that, more and more, and feel like it's growing for sure.
Right. And Saturday's game, what's your mentality look like? What's your strategy? Kind of tell our audience about, what this game means to your fans and your program.
The mentality is we're hungry. We've been training for this moment. Envisioned this moment since mid last season when we saw what the season was going to turn out to be. So it wasn't something. It just kind of happened. I've been training for over a year for this moment. So we're confident on the things that we can do. The other team. There's also a good team on the other side. So we have to be mindful, and we're preparing for those details. Like we have for all the other games. Team by team, there's some differences, pros and cons to every system. So we're training to keep those in mind. But we're definitely hungry for it. We've been training for over a year for this moment, and we're gonna give everything that we have to try to keep the trophy here with us.
Yeah, and I would disagree, Kaue. Like I feel like you guys have been training for this for many years, building up from their youth team, right? Like I understand what you're saying from maybe last year,
Mm-hmm.
right? But also give us your experiences on just building up the youth, and some of the youth academy players that want to be in your shoes, playing in a national championship game.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we've been with the youth for a good amount of years. Developing a methodology. So they know what that position needs. The little details. They see the stuff that we teach them, like in a practice. The technical stuff, the fake movements, or even tactical. When they start talking about the older age groups, you've seen that. So I think that builds a connection with the parents, especially for the kids. When we do that move and it works in the games, like, oh man, that's awesome. So as far as methodological side, we have we have stuff that we have to train and help the academy on a weekly basis, follow a curriculum. So we're touching in all those single areas. And when he gets towards the end of that road, like Micah, Micah
Yep.
was part of our youth academy. Recently got called up to the men's senior national team. Went to Brazil and whatever a handful of times. And we have our 09 age group. We have a couple who are in that same path. I think we have a total of like 8 to 9 potential players, but right now there's one particularly field player that's within that. We're putting in that time and showing, not only the kids, but that methodology works when the players do get to that age. They're ready. They're not just there kicking it about. They know, tactical things. They know, they're proficient technically. Obviously, there's a transition playing with youth and adults, and some of those players are already starting that with their reserve teams. Some want to be professional, some want to go to college, so we also have to respect those. But we have about 8 or 9 who have that potential to be there. So summarizing a lot of stuff, follow the methodology. We put the plan into action. They see it with their own eyes. We nurture that environment where it's safe, where they have to take risks, because risk is part of it. They can be shy of trying things at the right moment, and having Micah and the next one coming up, I think solidifies that. As a developing academy, and that's exactly what we want. We don't want to be bringing players all the time. We want to develop him at home and maybe bring 1 or 2 at the very most, but we want to make our own players for sure.
Right. And I think you may have just answered this, but when you created Brusa FC, was this your vision in mind? And now that this championships game is on Saturday and Micah playing in it, is this kind of exactly what you wanted?
Yeah, exactly. So when we're talking about academy, we don't want to just do it just to do it. Obviously, there's a bunch of different type of players. Some that want to help, making their middle school team. Some that want to be, a little bit better for soccer or whatever it is. There's a bunch of different things, and we offer those things. But when we're talking about highest level, what does the club want to get all the 100 and whatever 80 players that we have in the academy year round? Is get the most of them to be the best they can be, and if the best they can be, and give them options. I want to try to go field. We have context for that, but eventually being able to develop these players into youth national teams, and then pro senior national teams, and be playing abroad. We're successful already doing that with Micah. It's not easier. I've walked that path, studied as well. So, it being able to connect and show our public here that, not even talk about it, but just show, because I think your actions show much louder than words, that we know what we're doing. I think this solidifies, but this is for sure, the beginning of a lot of good stuff. We have more, goals that we want to reach, and we're working towards that. And this is a big, I guess, second step in our, long-term plan.
Right. And any challenges from taking the youth players, or any conflicts from the outdoor game into futsal?
As far as like other clubs?
Yeah, as far as like maybe some of the soccer clubs don't want their kids to play futsal.
I would say that whoever's still stuck into that, it's stuck at least 50 to 60 years in the past. If you do a simple, quick search, futsal accelerates individual development in football, period. People can like it or not like it, squirm about it, but that's the reality. Anything outside of that, they're just lying. Brazil is one of the countries that develops the most amount of professional players and exports year round. And obviously futsal is a big part of that. It's not just that, obviously, but that's something that only happens here still in the US. One of the reasons why it's so behind. So lack of knowledge, I would say, and preparation is probably a big part of that. But as far as our academy, we have players from over, I think, 13 different clubs throughout the valley. And, when they start seeing that player being a little bit more, technical and doing things that are different, thinking a little bit quicker, we quickly see, more players within that team wanting to come over. But I'm sure there's, some coaches that don't like it and make up crazy things. I think that comes more from insecurity and lack of knowledge. And, I'm going to lose that player, but we're not a soccer club. There's no affiliations to soccer club, and we're very club neutral. Our goal is to improve that player and fill in the void that a lot of soccer clubs, leave behind. Obviously, the system is broken. A country as big as the U.S. cannot be, in the place that it is, not develop as many players as they should. So we're coming in, not as a solution, but just to try to add and help a little bit of these players that want that help, And if you just do, like I said, a quick Google search, and take a lot of time, maybe 10 minutes, you'll be able to read a lot of scientific research that proves, the reality of things versus the opinion of someone who read something once upon a time and played in, I don't know, middle school, high school, whatever.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And again, kind of touching on Saturday's game, you don't have to answer this, but how do you guys lose this game? How does the Futsal Factory beat you?
I don't know. I mean, that's a question for them to answer. I already said they're probably analyzing our games and stuff like that. Every team has, their weaker points, and we're aware of, what could be ours. But we've been working on it, like I said, for a while to, make those weaker points, strengths, and make sure we're able to deal with situations when they do happen. So that's what I can say about that.
And let's say you win this game. What does that mean for Brusa FC moving forward?
Well, it means that, we just showed that, what we've been doing is the right path. Winning or losing, I think the path, what we've shown so far proves that. But that's just affirmation. It helps with sponsorships. Obviously, at the end of the day, all this championship stuff like that are creating history here in the U.S. So I think that will go down, into history. And futsal, when futsal eventually develops, becomes, countrywide, and it continues to grow. I know that people will look back and look at moments like this. So I think just solidifying more and more our place in, the history of futsal in the U.S. I think that's what it does, in the big scheme of things. For us on a day to day, we're still going to be just as hungry, we're already planning and thinking about the next season. So we'll continue to push forward, to keep, helping futsal grow and raising the bar, everywhere we can.
And that was my next question: is the future of futsal, even within our league, National Futsal Premier League. What's your view? What's your opinion? And how do we grow the game to attract more audience, more sponsorships, just more eyes on futsal?
Yeah, that's a complex question because the country is so big. So there are, some geographical challenges that I think kind of play a big part into growing it. So not only one person can do it. We've been doing here this in the Southwest. I think this past season we understood that we can be rivals, but we're business partners, and we have to be in this together. And everything that happens within the court is one thing, and outside of the court we have to help each other. So I'm super proud that we were able to understand and do that here in the Southwest. That's such a big step, becoming more solidified. So as far as growing the stuff and futsal in the whole country, we're going to need other people's help, but it starts here in our region. I think we did, took a big step, this season. Everyone's pretty solidified in everything that's going on. I don't think any of the clubs in the Southwest right now are going to go away anytime soon, which is, super good. We can see people, Pablo there trying to start the youth academy. You guys, doing that as well. And that will help, the future. That's a step towards it, but there's others, different leagues, small leagues popping up. And I think eventually there's going to be a point of emergence, if you look in the past, because history tends to repeat itself, like in Brazil and Japan, for example. There were two different leagues going and growing and growing and growing. And at one point in time, they merged and created, country right league. So that's probably what's going to happen here. When that's going to happen, I don't know, but we're going to be trying to help, that happen in any way, shape, or form. As soon as that's unified and solidified, the youth will also grow, because we already have, a central point of focus with the adults, and then I'll just bring it down with the youth. There's a bunch of different youth organizations, probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 that, host tournaments, and leagues, federation, whatever. Some of those terms are awesome. Some of them are very expensive, so it kind of price off some of the kids. And I understand the pricing wise, because gym and everything here are expensive. But I think there's ways we can all come together, and make those things a little bit more accessible. And I think there's a way for all the business to continue flourishing, because I know that's a big part here. It is a business, and I understand that. But I think there's a way where we can all come together, maybe not with the people that are in charge right now, but maybe with the future, people in charge in the future, that could be a possibility.
Yeah, and if you were to put your business hat on, and prospecting a new futsal franchise, what are you looking for?
So if I was the league, I would be looking at, where's that money coming from? Is, how organized are them? Because obviously, that's very logistical challenges. How can I, if they have youth systems, usually that's another, point that you can know that if they can continuously hold customers and grow in that product, they can probably pull out, a project like this. Where their facilities at, who's around them, would be, the things I'll be looking at.
Yeah.
But for sure, youth, organization wise, that will be some strong indicators, and understanding where that logistical challenge comes from, to see how organized that club really is. Those would be for me, or someone like you. You're in the business. You didn't have a youth academy, but you understood. You learned about the business and what needs to happen, and you're making the changes. And your second season, what was great, maybe not in the court, obviously the season, but everything else around it was, people were impressed, I can say, especially on our side.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when I was, and I've told you this, when I was looking into the National Futsal Premier League, I turned to you all, just the owners on the Southwest side, just for advice, and just followed in your footsteps. It was really that simple. And now that we're going into our year 3, we want to do more with the youth. So
Yeah, that's
there we
great.
go.
And like I said, any way that we can help, we'll for sure be there to help.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right, man. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for being our first guest last year. And full circle, man. Championship game. Dude, I'm so pumped. Definitely cheering for you guys, obviously, because you're in the Southwest. So good luck, man. Score lots of goals, and just can't wait. Can't wait to see the game on Saturday.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's always good talking to you. Thanks for having me here again, and hopefully you'll be, other chats in the future as well.
Of course. We'll always have you back. Thanks, man.
Thanks.